everybody, and welcome to the fourth week in the July Junk Journal Challenge, which is run by Leigh at Leigh Creates, or Leigh's Art and Junk Journal Wonderland. So where are we going to this week? Well, today's prompt, which is what we're going to start with, is written in the margins. I've been on an absolutely fascinating journey over the weekend, doing a bit of research for this, and I'll tell you more about that as I'm working today. And I'm not sure whether you can see, but on this page here, which is the page I'm going to be using today, I have drawn myself a little border. So I have a margin of about 3/4 of an inch all the way around. And so that's what I'm going to be working with today. The other thing I've done in preparation is that I have a couple of old book pages here, which were very, very thin. And so what I've done is I've actually glued two together. And I've glued them up the wrong way, if you like. So the top of this one is here, and when you flip it over, the top of this one is here. And I've done that for a specific reason, which you will see in a moment. So I'm going to kind of carry on with what I'm doing, and I'll talk to you a bit about what I've discovered at the same time. Before I start, I want to say, look, I'm really sorry, guys. I've not turned into a heavy smoker over the weekend. I've been playing with some turmeric. It's dyed my fingernails, and I've showered, I've scrubbed them, and I just can't get it off. So I'm sorry. That's how it is. Right. So yeah, written in the margins. I did some Googling at the weekend, and apparently, so I found out a huge amount I didn't know. The collective sort of name for writing that is in the margins of books is Marginalia, and I've been quite fascinated by this. And Marginalia can be written, so it can be words, it can be pictures, it can be diagrams, it can be like an arrow underline pointing to a passage of interest. It could be highlighted or underlined. So really interesting. The first example of Marginalia is somewhere around the 1400s, and it would have been in a Bible. And historically, Marginalia was really common because books were incredibly expensive, in comparison to other things, and they really were a luxury item in the past. And so copies were handed down and passed around, and the Marginalia was, a way of communicating your thoughts on a passage with another reader. They were also a way of referencing other books that the next reader might not have access to. And so that was the original, or it's thought that was the original purpose of Marginalia. Now, as you can see here, this is why I glued them with the top of the page the wrong way around, because I want to fold this up and make a pocket, and I wanted the writing to be the same way up. So there we go. So Marginalia has become less common, started to become less common as books became more readily available and more affordable. And I was raised, oh my goodness, you never wrote in a book. It was an absolute sin to write in a book, and it's probably, yeah. And so I was very much raised with that. Books were, in some ways, they were luxury items, but they were something to be looked after, and certainly not drawn in when I was a child. And then when I went on to study, it took me a long time to be able to sort of bring myself to actually write in the margins of the books I was using for studying. And yeah, and it's an interesting reflection there. But anyway, back to Marginalia. So there's a whole school of thought that talks about why we should or shouldn't write in books, and the overwhelming sort of feeling seems to be, from my research, that that actually writing in books can serve a number of purposes. And sorry, I'm talking and working at the same time here. So the purposes that Marginalia can serve, as well as you know, notes for yourself about, you know, marking important passages or whatever, they can actually be, as we've sort of said, a historical record for others. And this is something that scholars have really highlighted in terms of historical marginalia, that these notes that people have left provide a real insight to the thinking of the times, and in that way they become really valuable. And I think that's probably less so today, but certainly from my own experience of buying second-hand textbooks when I was studying, and I mean, I did degrees in psychology and social work, so you know, the reading other people's notes in the margins was always really interesting when you bought a second-hand textbook. And I need to get my doorbell. Hang on. There we go. Yeah, reading other people's notes on the text was often really interesting, and sometimes I learned more from that than I did from reading it myself. But anyway, yeah, so Marginalia, it provides a sort of a historical record of thinking at the time, but it's a way of communicating with future readers, and in that sense, it's seen as a way of socialising in some ways. You know, potentially discussing. It's a way of discussing ideas and passing things on. But it's also, you know, if you are studying or reading something in any depth, it's a way of organising your own thoughts, and sort of a precursor to anything that you might write. So yeah, really. So who would guess, from a simple prompt in a junk journal challenge, I have learned so much. There we are. So whilst I've been talking to you, as you will see, I've used that book page and I've created a little pocket, and I'm going to bring that over. I'm keeping this page covered just because it's not too distracting. Now, I've done that to the size that I had penciled in here, and I'm going to stick that down as a little pocket. I'm going to think about putting something on here, but before I stick that down, I actually want to write in the margins, and so I'm going to be putting some notes in here, just what I've been talking about, because for me, I remember things best by writing them down, or, as I say, you know, making notes in the margin. So I'm going to make some notes around here about the things I've learnt about Marginalia, and I will stick this on afterwards. So let's do that. Okay, so as you can see, I've written Marginalia across the top, and then I've made some notes around the edges about some of the things that I've learnt about Marginalia this week. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to use my eraser. I'm going to get rid of that pencil line that I had to guide me as to where the margins needed to be, and then I'm going to get this pocket stuck in. Now, of course, there's also a book by Edgar Allan Poe called Marginalia, and I happen to know this because last month I took part in the Creep on June challenge run by Tracy Fox, and a lot of it was about, well, it was using quotes from Edgar Allan Poe, and I'd read some of Poe's work previously, but it was a really cool challenge because I got to find out so much more about some more of his poetry and his work. And in the sort of the latter half of the 1800s, Poe published a book, or it was a collection of critical essays actually, entitled Marginalia. And it really was a collection of essays that were quite sort of voicing some of his thoughts, I guess, on other writers of the day, which is quite interesting. Now I'm just grabbing a little bit of washi tape here, and the colour doesn't matter because it's not going to be seen, but I'm wanting to create a double pocket here, so I'm just going to use this washi tape to cover the edges of the bits I've folded over, so that it doesn't catch when you put things in and out of the pocket. You'll see what I mean in a moment. There we go. So there's my pocket. I'm just going to glue around the edge. Or around the 3 edges. Leave the top open anyway. And let's position that in the middle. There we go. I've collected up a few other bits and pieces to see what I can use here. I've got a little printable of a book or a journal, and this was left over from the challenge I did last month. I've also got a nice quote here. Books are the quietest and most constant of friends. They are the most accessible and wisest of counsellors, and the most patient of teachers. So I would like to get that in somewhere. And as I said, I've got the little book. I've also got a variety of pictures and journaling cards, which are all book related. Got some lovely ones here of libraries, and again, these are left over from the Creep on June challenge last month. So these are designed by Tracy Fox, but I thought they're lovely sort of books on libraries. I've got a couple of other ones related to books, and I've got this, which actually arrived in the post last week, and this is a note from some family members who were actually returning a book that we had left with them to read. So I thought that was lovely, and I'm hoping, yeah, it is too big, but I might be able to cut this down and pop in the back. I'm a little bit undecided because I don't really want to lose the lovely note that's on the back, so I may or may not include that one, but certainly I have some smaller journaling cards here which I'm going to do something with, and then they can tuck in the pockets. So I'll sort those out, and my quote, and then we'll kind of see where we're at. Okay everyone, so let's have a look at our finished page. Now, after I turned the camera off, I sort of looked back and the white of the paper that the quote was on was just a little bit glaring for me. So I grabbed my watercolour brush and it's sort of a creamy gold, but the watercolour. So I've just used that on that quote just to take that sort of bright white away. So we're all about written in the margins today, which is Marginalia. So we have the title across the top here, we have our Marginalia around the edge, and a book page turned here into a double pocket with some journaling cards, and of course our prompt there, and a couple more journaling cards tucked in here, which I've backed with some sort of copies of like lending cards from the library, because these two look, you know, they're like a gorgeous home library, floor to ceiling books, which is something I would dream of. Anyway, I've been reflecting as I'm doing this, and really sort of the importance that books have played in my life over the years, and still do within our family in general. Actually, we're all big readers, and we encourage our grandchildren to in a love of books as well, and we're very fortunate in that they seem to have taken that on board. So there we are, guys, written in the margins, Marginalia today. I have thoroughly enjoyed not only creating this page but doing the research as well in preparation for this. So I hope that's been interesting to you. We are back tomorrow with the prompt of postcard. But until then, I will say thank you very much for watching, and ka kite anō.